So, it's Orktober, and I think you know what that means. Let's build an orc. How's it going, guys? I'm Matt, this is my beard, and welcome to today's video. So, I'm quite looking forward to making this one for you guys. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit... I'm in my element, shall we say, because this is creativity unbridled for me. So, for context, today I'm going to be painting the beast boss on a Squigosaur, okay? It is from the Mozrog Scribad box, but it's the alternate version, so you can either build Mozrog or you could build the beast boss. And I think the beast boss for me is like a little bit more it's a bit more up my street. I love the massive blade that he's got. He's got a shooter as well, and I just think overall the model itself looks really cool. And because obviously I don't collect orcs currently, I think it would be quite a fun model to play around with, have a bit of fun with, and it's going to be a bit of a break model, shall we say, before I jump into my one of my next projects. So obviously you guys know about my Deathwing, but there's also a secret project that I'm doing for my Halloween special. And as soon as I finish this model, I'm jumping straight onto the Halloween special. So that'll be quite fun. But for the sake of context and for the sake of this video, I'm just going to show you guys this model and what we're going to do. So this is the box. This is basically me opening the box. In the contents, as you can see, it's pretty simple. It's just a couple of sprues and a base. However, the variant that we're doing today is the beast boss on Squigosaur. As I said, I like the fur. I like the two sort of spikes on his back. But I also really enjoy the idea of that sword as well, so that big cleaver style sword that he's wearing, and I think that'll lend itself to quite a dynamic model. Now for this model I do have quite an interesting idea for the base, and that's what we're going to focus on first and foremost before we start actually building the Squigosaur and also the beast boss. And I'm actually going to use a piece from a Tyrannid kit, so I'm going to be using the base plinth from a Norn emissary. Now obviously that's quite a interesting bit to do, so there's going to be a little bit of green stuff work on here too, but from purely the stance of a modelling perspective, if I get the base right and if I'm able to set the feet right and potentially do a little bit of legwork on the I think it's the Squigosaur's right hand leg, I'll be able to position and pose this model quite nicely on that base plinth, and really have some fun with this. So without further ado, I'm going to crack on with the base, and I'll catch up with you guys when I start doing the model. Now that the feet and legs are done, this helps me to understand roughly where it is the model will be standing on the base, so then that allows me to have creative vision and allows me to plan the rest of the base. Now there's going to be quite a little bit of empty space at the front, so what I'm thinking is I'm going to use some of the Gamer Grass resin rocks. You get these in a pack of, I think it's 16, and I've trimmed some of them down to size, or two of them rather, just to fit on, and I'm just going to see how that looks. And to be honest, it looks quite nice. However, we are missing something from this side here, so I'm not sure as to whether or not I should pop this over here, trim it down some more and have it like that, or maybe I should use an additional one, or whether I should just use the one and move it around here possibly, because it still sits flush. No, I think it looks better over this side. Well, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to crack on with the rest of the base until it's primed, and then we'll catch up and I'll explain where we are then. Now that the base is base coated, we can start looking at how we're going to tackle colour. So there's quite a few bits and bobs to be looking at here, and obviously there's a few of the tyrannid spores as well. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to just crack on with doing metal in the grade up here, obviously detailing brass on this little vent here, and doing just the standard moot green on the growths, so these like these hexagonal sort of things here, and then look at doing potentially like a purple to green fade on the spores and these spikes. Looking to do just browns and greys for the stone, because there is some stone here as well. But outside of that, it's going to be a pretty simple and pretty good process, so I'm looking forward to it. Let's jump into it. Now we're at this stage here, I'm going to jump on and do a little bit of pre-weathering before I continue on with detail work and then also the spores and that sort of thing. I'm going to be using Goon's Grime by Villainy Inc. Now, this is going to be quite a simple one. All I'm going to be doing is I'll be getting some Goon's Grime out into a little dish, so something like this. Then I'll be liberally applying it all throughout the metal areas on top, and a little bit underneath as well, just in these bits here, and then also on the pipe on the back. I'm going to let that sit for a little while, probably about an hour, and then once that's sort of set, I'm going to come back in with some of my, it's like white spirit, and use that to reduce it off. So I'll be using some cotton swabs and just removing the excess, and what that does, it leaves a bit of depth on the model, and it leaves that grime, that sort of dark, semi-rusted but still, you know, visceral and grim effect. So I'll be doing that all over the top. Then I shall be putting a layer of matte varnish over it. Now, this is going to be the first time that I've used matte varnish on a model, so that's going to be an interesting endeavour to say the least, but I'll be using this one, which is the matte varnish from Colourforge. Obviously, I'll be following the instructions down to the T and making sure that I give it the best opportunity for success. And what that does is it seals in the Goon's Grime, because obviously it is an enamel wash and it doesn't necessarily dry for quite some time. And obviously I want to be working on this, so once it's all sealed in, I'll then be able to layer up from there. But realistically, all I've got left to do is all of the spores, the green bits for the hex pattern here, the detail work on the top, and then also I'm going to be doing some dry brushing on the rocks too, and then I'll be sealing it on with a rim, which is going to be black for this one. So outside of that, looking forward to seeing how the Goon's Grime lands on, and we'll take it from there. So I'm just going to give you guys a quick run through of reductive technique. It's really simple to do. Now, I have obviously zoomed in just so you can see the full effect. Now, the villainy ink itself has been on the model for about an hour now. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with a Q-tip or a cotton bud, depending upon what you call it in your area of the world. And I'm going to put it in some mineral spirit. So I'm just going to get out some of the excess so it's wet, and then it's just a simple case of applying it Now what this is doing, it's reactivating the enamel properties within the villainy ink itself, and it's actually coming off onto the Q-tip, which arguably or rationally you would think, well, why would you want to do that? You've just applied it. Well, this is the point. By doing this, it allows you and enables you to leave in the recesses the darker shades of the enamel wash itself. So once you've done a decent amount of coverage, just go back in with the regular side. So you've got two sides to your Q-tip. I've got one which is doused in the mineral spirit or the white spirit, and the other one which is simply not. And what this is doing, it's just drying the area. So I'm just going to dry off, take off the excess of the mineral spirit, or the white spirit rather. And there we are. So as you can see, there are still areas of grime, and that's exactly what we're looking to achieve here. So I'm just going to dab and dab, take away. And then on the bottom, I think I'm going to just leave that as is, because it's obviously a darker area and it makes more sense to leave it on. But for now, I think that's pretty much it. So I'm now going to go and give this a clear varnish, or a matte varnish rather, and fingers crossed it doesn't destroy the model. Now that the Colourforge matte varnish has been applied to the base, it has dulled it down slightly, which is good. That's what we wanted to happen. However, it has dulled and whitened slightly the metallic areas, and I think this is just like a education point for me, or a learning point for me. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to do a dry brush to bring that back up, so a dry brush in Leadbelcher, and then I'm going to get on to finishing off the details on the base, including the purples and greens on the spores, and also the Tyranid gunk, like the hexagonal stuff. And I'm also maybe going to even try putting in some water effect in this little hole here. So let's jump onto that and see how it turns out. And there we have one finished base. It's absolutely gorgeous, genuinely really happy with how this is all coming out so far. So I've used Skarsnik green, Strachan green and Ogren camo with Bealtan green as the shade, and then I've also gone in and dry brushed a couple of the greys, so Administratum and Dawnstone. Now let's move on to the Beast Boss. This is going to be where the real fun lies, and I can't wait to see both the base and the model together. The base is now finished, and it's time to actually crack on with the model itself. So we have the legs for the Squigosaur now, and we're going to finish off the Squigosaur itself. That's going to be its own separate sub-assembly, and then we're also going to build up the Beast Boss the Beast Boss itself. Once he's built up, I'm going to prime them both, and that's going to be my 2 sub-assemblies. The great thing about the Beast Boss is he's quite an open model, meaning that for painting, I don't need to do any sub-assemblies really. The actual Beast Boss himself is one model, and the Squigosaur is a secondary model, and he's just a mount. So it's going to be a simple one. So I'm going to get all this built up, and once it's built up and primed, we will rejoin the story. Well, some changes were made. So I decided to not do 2 sub-assemblies based on the fact that the rider himself, so the Beast Boss, isn't actually as closed off as I thought he was going to be. He's actually quite an open model. So I've taken the time to get everything sanded down, everything, I've barreled both the guns. But I've also done some green stuff work on the stomach and a little bit of the neck and the chin. But then also I've added in these 2 sort of Mohican style spikes on the head there. I think based on the fact that it's the the Beast Boss rather, and based on the fact that the head looks amazing as is, but I thought it would look just that little bit, it was just missing something on the top, I think. So I thought, right, well, why not just add it on? It goes really well with the armour, so the shoulder pad and whatnot here, and also because it's obviously, it's quite a spiky little guy anyway, it made sense for us to have a bit of fun with it. So I did. It's the first time I've actually used green stuff properly. I was using some of these rubber tipped brushes. I got them from a local hobby shop. I think they're about £7, and I got a pack. So it's the Taper Point Ammo rubber brush set, and there was 5 of them in that set of different sizes and styles. So I'm going to go and get this guy base coated, and then we shall start painting. 1 base coated Squigosaur and Beast Boss. So now that the base coat has been done, you can really see how impactful this model is going to be longer term. It's great seeing it in its dull and grey stage, but for me, I think this is where I really start to get excited about things, because there is actually paint on this model now, and it does start to make you think, okay, well, what's going to work where? How is it going to work well? What can I do? So I'm going to start off on the Squigosaur. I'm going to do a traditional great white. I'm not going to go down any of the more lavish or more colourful routes. I feel that going down a simple sort of grey scale great white look is going to be far more beneficial to me. Now I'm steering away from box art because I'm going a bit darker. So I'm going to be starting with Administratum Grey, going into... don't fall over. Going to be going from Administratum Grey into Dawnstone into Eshin Grey on the top, and I'm using the Dawnstone to help sort of differentiate that break line. I'm going to be either stippling or sponging on. I haven't quite gotten that far yet, just to see how that blends through. But I do want that definitive line going across the top of the Squigosaur itself. The first thing I am, however, going to tackle is the maw. So the actual inside of the mouth. I'm going to get that in with a Screamer Pink. Going to dull that down with a Caribou Crimson. And then I may come back in and do a couple of highlights on the tongue. When it comes to the teeth, I'm going to go down a bone route. So I'm going down probably Ushabti Bone, dulled down with Agrax Earthshade. Just to maintain that semblance of there is actually an actual monster here as opposed to an engined monster such as what's on the box art. But for the time being, let's crack on with the maw. Then we'll jump onto the skin and we'll catch up before detailing. So, just as a quick update as to where we're at, because I've done quite a bit, so I thought I'd just jump in before I start the detail work on the Squigosaur. So far we are at this step here. Now, I'm really happy with how the grey fade on the actual Squigosaur's turned out, and the mouth is looking pretty good too, as you can see there. Overall, model's looking absolutely amazing. Like, I'm really keen to get it done, but I'm also acutely aware that I want to make a good video out of this as well. So I'm going to finish off the Squigosaur in full. So that's the leather banding, it is the engine bits, it's going to be the rider's seat, and the gun, and the leg, and the nails for the right leg for the Squigosaur, and the satchel on the back, and the footholds. And then from there we'll jump in and we'll have a little look as to how we're going to tackle the actual beast boss himself. Overall though, I'm really enjoying this. To give you an idea as to what I've done with the blend, so I've used makeup sponges. Now, I got these for £1.50 for a pack of 4 from B&M, and they are called 4 blender sponges, and they're not from B&M, sorry, they're from Primark. Honestly, makeup stuff in our game is really good. Like, if you want a cheap alternative to dry brushing, you can get foundation brushes, a really thick, broad head, really nice dusters. They're really good. For example, the actual makeup sponges themselves, like these things. So that's the kind of thing you look at. And honestly, for sponge work and for blending upwards, it's absolutely amazing. Also, I took the mic away from my mouth, so I don't know how that's going to sound. Sorry. But yeah, I'm just excited about all this. I'm just quickly jumping in. But yeah, this is looking really cool so far. Really happy with how it's turned out. Yeah, I'm just going to crack on. I'm going to finish off the Squigosaur in full, and then I think I'm going to glue it to the base, and then I'm going to tackle the rider, because I'm not going to be doing any further work on the actual Squigosaur itself. The Squigosaur's done. Well, once I've finished it, it's done. And it'll be so much easier for me to paint the rider, so paint the beast boss on the base, because then I've got my grip and I've got my holder. So yeah, right, I'm just going to crack on. Right, bye. It's now time to paint the beast boss. Now, just to catch you up with the story so far, I have done the detail work on quite a lot of the Squigosaur, and I've also glued it to the base. So as you can see, it's looking so good so far. Like, I was just getting some feedback from a few of my friends, and we all collectively agree that this is quite possibly one of the best paint jobs I've ever actually done. And I'm very much of that opinion as well. I'm really proud of how this is coming out so far, and I think I'm going to continue on with the beast boss in the same fashion that I've been doing everything else. Now, there are a couple of little tiny bits of touch-up work that I need to do, but these are things that I've noticed as I've been attaching it to the base. But ultimately, it's just looking so good. Now, one of the last things I am going to be doing is this little bit of drool here. That's probably going to be one of the last things I do, because I'm going to be using some Uhu glue to finish it off. But outside of that, the Beast Boss is ready to be painted. Now, I do have his back crest, the skull with the metal spikes at the back. I'm going to be painting this up separately, and I'm going to be painting the pelt separately, and then I'm going to be attaching this to this. I just wanted access to all of the pelt before I obviously crack on with the rest of the model. But ultimately, this is where we're at, and I think just looking at how it's posed and looking at how it stands, you can see why I'm excited. It just looks and screams WOG. So yeah, as you can probably tell by my voice, I'm quite excited by this. Like, I've probably put about 50 hours of work into this so far, and overall, I mean, you can see the detail and you can see the results. It's phenomenal. Now, I don't think there's anything else I need to really tell you about it. It's all pretty simple stuff. Mephiston red for the red pipes. I've used a brass scorpion for the brass. I've used lead belcher for the silver, and then I've dulled it down with a Nolan oil. That's pretty much it, to be honest with you. Outside of that, I think I'm just ready to start painting the Beast Boss himself and actually getting this model finished. I am so happy and so proud of how this has come out. Let's finish it off. Well, happy Orktober. This is the finished Beast Boss on a Squigosaur. Enjoy. this project was really, really fun. I think because I wasn't concerned about matching colour palettes to other models or a different scheme. I was kind of free forming, and I was in this creative sort of bubble. Nearing the end of it, I was, funnily enough, I was struggling to record some of the bits. I mean, to be blunt, halfway through, my phone did decide it would be a good idea to give me camera fails. So I don't know why that happened, but never mind. But let's focus on the model. So I broke this video up, and I broke my painting process up into 3 separate parts, or 3 chapters. And we'll start off with chapter 1, which was the base. Now the base itself, that was my anchor for the entirety of the project. I wanted to put the beast boss and the Squigosaur on something other than just the base. I didn't just want a generic boring base for this, because obviously it is quite a cool model, and it's a model that I've wanted for a couple of years now, so I thought, why not have a bit of fun with it. The non-emissary plinth, or base bit, had been sat there for quite a while, because my non-assimilator, I didn't actually use that base plinth or base bit. I used something different. So I decided to utilise that part from my bits box and just, crack on with it. And I think I've done it justice. I think it really does lend itself well to tell that story of that model. So, the beast boss is riding through a Tyranid infested area or world, and it's kind of like just stood atop this like grotesque like cesspool of biological ooze, and it's just looking, it's just looking for its next victim, so to speak, or next thing to kill. The base itself, one point of improvement I would say is I would like to use the AK Interactive's puddles in a different way. It's a diorama grade product. However, I think it's just how I applied it. It's landed with a few bubbles, and it's not, it's not very obvious, but it's not very nice either. So I think going forward, I'm going to, do a couple more tests with it and see how it goes. But overall, from using the matte varnish to seal in the villainy ink, from dry brushing through the metal, overall I'm just really happy with how this model's base has panned out. And now we go on to my favourite part of the model, which is the Squigosaur. So chapter 2. Now the Squigosaur itself, as I mentioned earlier in the video, I was thinking about going different paths with this. I was thinking maybe a nurse shark, or maybe a different sort of shark colour pattern. So maybe like a more Greenland shark-esque, with the green and the dots, or maybe even maybe the megamouth shark. So having like the blue-grey with all the intricate white dots across the back. I thought that would be really cool, and I was really close to going down that line of paint. However, I decided just go for the great white. I think the great white's probably going to be the best way to do this, and it's going to frame the model nicely. And thankfully it did. I focused on a stippling technique that I've been playing around with for a while, using makeup sponges. So doing a stipple blend with a makeup sponge, going from light to dark, and graduating up, because from a layering perspective, the dark stripe on the back is going to be the dominant colour as opposed to the light underbelly. So that for me means that the dark layer needs to be the last layer that goes on. So I've gone from like that administratum grey. I did a couple of good layers on that, very thin layers, just to make sure I was building up that consistency across the model. And then I worked my way up through Dawnstone and then into Eshin Grey, and it's really, it's so smooth. It really, really works well. A point of improvement for going forward is going to be green stuff. So from the Squigosaur, I did use a bit of green stuff to do some gap fill here and there. But I think going forward, I need to give myself a little bit more time at the start to do the prep work, sand down the excess of the green stuff, and then smooth it on out from there. Because I think if I'm only doing it for gap fill, then there's no point in putting as much as I put on. And I put a little bit too much on, think I could just smooth it round and make it, look a little bit better than what it does. I can tell it's there, but from a layman who's just looking at the model itself, you would think it's a part of the model. So I've kind of I've escaped the net there a little bit. Finally, let's go on to chapter 3, which was obviously the Beast Boss. Now, the Beast Boss was a really cool thing to paint. I've not painted black armor before, but it seems to be pretty cool. It was just a flat black. I wasn't going to do any edge highlighting or anything like that. I just wanted it as was. And thankfully the model came with a couple of scratches already sculpted on, so I used that to my advantage and painted in some lead belcher just to show that the paint had been like torn and scarred. For the pelt, I used a Corvus black base coat and then a dry brush, a very light dry brush of that Dawnstone. Now that's one of our anchor colours with this. The Gawthor Brown and the Dawnstone, those two colours are throughout the model. They are used throughout the entirety of the model, and that ties it all up. A trick that I've found that really works if you want to get that consistency throughout the entirety of the model is if you have a couple of anchor colours which all the rest of your colours are based on, or most of the rest of your colours are based on, then it gives that line of continuity between base. If the model's riding something, then it's mount, and then actually the model itself. So overall, I think the Beast Boss himself looks really, really cool. He's just standing stoically. I finished off the metal areas with a bit of street and grime from AK Interactive, just to give that little bit of sort of dullness to things, because it was looking quite bright with the metals that I'd used. Obviously, I'd used the Retributor armor, I'd used the lead belcher, I'd used the brass scorpion. So I'd gone through a couple of different metals, and overall, I think it works quite nicely. It blends quite nicely together. So the big question is, do I start collecting orcs? I loved this project. It was so fun. I didn't have time to buy them before this video, because so if you're watching this on the Friday, it is currently about 6:15 on the Friday night of this video being released, and I've just got to do a couple of shots of the actual model on the Lazy Susan, and then I'll be editing it all together and getting it uploaded. So if you're watching this on the Friday of release, then you're watching it within hours of me finishing this model. So I wasn't able to order the name plinths. I can't remember the name of the company now. The company's name escapes me. But I think I'm going to choose a name for this character myself. So such and such Beast Boss. I'm going to put a name plinth on the front, and then on the back I'm going to have Orktober 2024 just as a separate name plinth on the back of the model. I think that would be a really cool touch, and if I decide, well, I think I've pretty much decided that next year I'm going to do Orktober again and do something similar, and maybe give myself a little bit more time. As I say, I spent around about 52 to 55 hours on this, all said and done. I mean, you've probably seen a couple of different t-shirts and all sorts of things along the way. I was meant to try and get this done in a 24-hour period, but as I started working on the base and as I started working on the Squigosaur itself, I was like, you know what, nah, I'm just going to focus on this and make this as good as I can, because I'm really enjoying it. And that is the point I want to land on and finish on. I loved doing this model. Absolutely loved doing this model. Unequivocally loved doing this model. It was amazing. It was so fun. I had so much of a creative sort of spread. Like, I just had unbridled creativity. I was like, oh, how can I do this? What can I do here? And I was just testing things because I wasn't tied to a colour scheme. And that for me really, really worked nicely. It was like, oh, okay, I was just figuring stuff out as I was going, and I was keen and I was eager to put paint on the model. And that kind of like that passion, that burn, that feeling, honestly, is why I do this. This is why I have this hobby as my main overarching hobby. I mean, I love to go out for walks. I love to go like in nature, and waterfalls my thing. Like, I love to go to a waterfall. Just like, it's just great. I love playing Magic the Gathering. I love playing on my PlayStation, on my Xbox. Like, I love Pokemon, and I play Pokemon Go pretty much every day. But out of all of my hobbies, out of everything I do, this is why I do it. This is why I do it. Honestly, like, I think that's where I'm going to end it. So thank you very much for watching this video, guys. It's been a bit of a longer one, but the end results, I think, kind of justify that, because I was talking to one of my friends, showing them the finished model just before I started filming this segment, and I kind of reflected, and I was like, you know what it is? This is the best model I've ever painted. And I've painted some cool stuff. Like, I've been really impressed with some of the stuff that I've done in the past. But when I look at all the different elements and everything that's gone into this, you know, the skin, the flesh, the metals, the base, the teeth, even the teeth, like, everything combined, this is the best model I've ever painted. And I've loved it. I've really, really loved it. So thank you for staying around and watching the video. If you've watched to the end, hello, thank you. Thank you very much. Please drop this a like if you've liked the video and you've liked the finished product and you want to see more of this kind of content, me sort of pushing myself with different models and that sort of thing. And if you're new around here and you haven't done so already, please subscribe. I'm trying to get to 200 subscribers by the end of the month, which will be, you know, that'll be quite interesting, because I've got a couple of videos lined up before then. But that'll be interesting to see if we get to that point. But outside of that, I've been Matt. This has been my beard. Thanks very much for watching, guys. I'll catch you later.